Another key component of reading critically is determining the author's purpose and tone. Purpose in a piece of writing is either to inform, to persuade, or to entertain. Can an essay or reading selection or paragraph have more than one purpose? Of course it can. Sometimes they inform and entertain. The tone of a particular piece of writing is the attitude and the feeling that the author wants to convey. Now, when we speak, we can hear our different tones and our different maybe sarcasm or excited expectancy of things to come. But when we are reading a particular piece of writing, sometimes it's more difficult to figure out what the tone of the overall impression is. And we have to look at vocabulary and diction and other important key components that this particular PowerPoint shares with us. The purpose of this cartoon, like all cartoons, is entertain. Can you tell what the tone that each speaker is? First one says, "Want me to go to the drugstore with me? I need to get some shaving cream." And the woman says, "Why not? Sounds like one of the more fun dates we've had lately." Can you figure out what the tone of the husband and wife are? Of course, the man wants his wife to accompany him. The woman is a little bit more sarcastic, saying that sounds like a fun date. As I said before, the three main purposes of writing are to inform, to persuade, or to entertain. The cover and title of anything that you read sometimes will suggest the author's primary purpose. Let's take a look at these three different books. You have a sociology book, you have a book called Fast Food Nation, and then you have a book called Lad, a Dog. Think about it to yourself. What are the purposes of each of these particular books? Now let's check yourself to see if you're correct. Of course, the first one is to inform. The second one is probably to persuade. I'm going to talk about the negative effects because it says the dark side of all that American meal. And then the Lad looks like just a particular novel that a youngster might read to entertain. Let's look at this particular paragraph and see if we can determine what the author's purpose is. Athletes should not earn millions of dollars a year. If they weren't paid so much, then tickets to sport events wouldn't have to be so expensive, and more people could enjoy sports more often. Also, more reasonable pay would make for better role models for young people, many of whom look up to sports figures. So what do you think the purpose of this paragraph is? It is to try to persuade, trying to convince the reader to believe, like their author does, that athletes should not earn millions of dollars a year. Let's look at another paragraph. The bubonic plague, also called the Black Death, swept Europe, Asia, and Africa from 1346 to 1353. So deadly was this disease that it killed 1/3 of the population of these continents. The plague was spread by fleas infected with bacteria from diseased rats. When it resulted in pneumonia, coughing spread the bacteria directly through the air. So what do you think the primary purpose of this particular paragraph is? Hopefully you knew that it was to inform. Basically just gave us factual details about the Black Death. Finally, read this paragraph. Go ahead and pause the video. Read this paragraph and then try to determine what the author's purpose is. And it is to entertain us. Hopefully you got that correct because it's just kind of playful and exaggerated details about the efforts that women take to look beautiful. Like I stated before, writing can sometimes blend 2 or even 3 purposes. For example, the main purpose of your textbook for this course is to inform. The next title of critically reading is called Tone. Tone, like I said, is the attitude. Tone is expressed through the words and details the writer selects. Below are 3 statements by employees of a fast food restaurant. Notice the differences in tone. I have no doubt that flipping burgers and toasting buns will prepare me for a top position on Wall Street. The tone might be described as mocking or sarcastic. I love working at Burger Barn. I meet interesting people, earn extra money, and get to eat all the chicken nuggets I want when I go on break. That person's tone is a little bit more enthusiastic or positive about work. And finally, I'm not excited about wearing fluorescent green polyester uniforms, but the managers are willing to schedule me around my classes, and the company offers scholarships to hardworking employees. This tone might be described as objective or fair-minded. Here's another statement by an employee of a fast food restaurant. How would you describe the tone? I hate this job. The customers are rude, the managers are idiots, and the food smells like dog chow. How would you describe the tone of this particular statement? Hopefully you got something similar to bitter or angry. Let's look at some other examples of tone. Unfortunately, this car is a lot less reliable than I'd like. The tone, is it optimistic, disappointed, or caring? And the other example, it's not the greatest car in the world, but it usually takes me where I have to go. Angry, humorous, or tolerant? Hopefully you got disappointed on the first one and tolerant on the second one. One idea about tone is the term irony. Irony is a very kind of difficult element of literature or element of writing to describe, but it almost means discrepancy. When writing has an ironic tone, it says one thing but means the opposite. There's a couple of types of irony, but here is one example of verbal irony, also known as sarcasm. And you can pause this and read these quotes as examples of verbal irony. Situational irony also means when we think we have something figured out, but the opposite happens. That's called situational irony. If you look at the cartoon, the man's desk is a mess, and yet he says, no going to friends until you've cleaned your room. Here are some other examples of situational irony. Look at the cartoon below, then decide whether the quotation is straightforward or ironic. If we know our senior executives is making a bad decision, shouldn't we tell her? Yes, let's end our careers by challenging a decision that won't change. That's a great idea. I'm getting mixed signals here. And let's pull our neckties until it hurts. If we know our senior executive is making a bad decision, shouldn't we tell her? Is that straightforward or ironic? Hopefully you got straightforward. Let's end our careers by challenging a decision that won't change. That's a great idea. Is that straightforward or ironic? Of course, that one is ironic. And let's pull our neckties until it hurts. Is that straightforward or ironic? And of course, that's ironic as well. Hopefully, after reading this particular PowerPoint and video, you've seen that two important terms, purpose and tone, and then another one that kind of goes under tone is irony. Key elements to reading critically and being successful in reading and understanding what you have read.